Let's, all right, let's get started. Why don't we, Rebecca, why don't we have you introduce yourself? And since it's a really small group, why don't we, if people are inclined to introduce themselves, please do so. And if not, that's fine too.
Yeah. So I am Rebecca Strang. My pronouns are she, they. I'm an academic librarian. I'm the outreach and engagement librarian at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. I am also I've been active with the Games and Gaming Roundtable of the American Library Association for a decade now. That's crazy. For a decade. I've been on the board in various positions. I was a past president, and I'm currently chairing their grant committee and their program planning committee. So I get to award money to people and plan all of the fun events and things that we do as a roundtable. Um, and I've been playing games for a long time.
Okay, but what's your favorite?
That really depends on a lot of things. Such a loaded question, Gene. A game I am enjoying right now. Um, I have actually sitting right here. I haven't actually started a session of this, but I've been enjoying reading through Stewpot, which is so cozy and lovely and wonderful. Um, I recently finished a campaign of playing Artisans of Splendent Vale, which is a like board game RPG hybrid. I also have Chris's game. Chris, I don't think is here, but I have Necromancer Heretic sitting right here. So all of, yay, all of those kinds of things.
Nice. George, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is George Bergstrom, he, him, and I have only been involved with the roundtable maybe 5 or 6 years, so not nearly as long as Rebecca, but it does shock me when I think about that. I have also been in the presidential trio, but I just rolled off of that, and I now serve as the chair of the awards committee and co-chair of programming. My focus is mainly on International Games Month, and I see at least two wonderful sponsors here with us today, so thanks for being here.
So
If anyone
totally
doesn't know,
voluntarily. Yep, go ahead,
I
George.
guess anyone who doesn't know, International Games Month is every November. It actually started in 2006 as a day-long event and has grown to a week and then to international and now to a month over those past 19 years. Oh my gosh. um,
Time flies.
it does. It does. In fact, it was interesting. ALA just sent that survey and they're like, are there any other celebrations happening next year? I'm like, well, I think it'll be the 20th year of IGM if you want to let us celebrate that. So we'll see what they say.
All right, entirely voluntarily. Does anybody else want to introduce themselves to the group?
And you can do it in chat if you don't want to do voice or video also.
Hi,
Uh,
this is Dan. My Wi-Fi is real spotty, or not the Wi-Fi. The cell service is real spotty, so I'm avoiding the video. But um, my connection to libraries is I did volunteer when I was a teen for several years growing up because I was always in the library anyway. But now I'm on the game designer side and happy to find out more about how that connection can be made.
Awesome.
uh, I will introduce myself. Uh, my name's Paul Czege. I've been making role-playing games and storytelling games for a lot of years, and more recently, journaling games. I wrote a couple of zines that are how-to books that because I got so consumed by ways of playing and people not really talking about how and sort of presuming that um, a journaling game might be just like uh, a writing exercise. Yeah, Gene's got it. Um, and I did for a number of years. I worked for a reference and textbook publisher, so my lens on libraries is a little, informed by that, by creating products that, um, you can convince a library to buy. So anyway, that's who I am.
Well,
Is that
I'll
wrong?
round it out and say I'm Gene Kuku, and I'm a more recent designer than Paul. Um, and I've been very interested in different ways that we can get all different kinds of games, tabletop games, in front of people where people are. I've been looking a lot at bookstores and now libraries as places where, I'm very curious about whether we can position some of the things that we do as not necessarily just coming at it from the games perspective, but almost more from the creativity perspective, and getting folks engaged with things, maybe a completely different audience than the usual suspects. Is kind of what started some of my questions around this topic. I'm very excited to have this conversation this afternoon.
Yay. And we might have one more introduction if a mic is now working.
Let's try it now.
Yay.
Hey, there we go. Hi, I'm John. I make games as Exeunt Press, and my involvement with libraries is I've never worked at one, but I did join the ALA. They let you join even if you're not in a library, and I've taught some classes on tabletop game design, and it's one of the things that I want to support because I think public libraries are foundational to a proper civilization. So.
Yay. I also just got a package from an order from you the other day.
Very nice. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Yes.
I should add very quickly that actually there's two libraries that I do play testing at. There's my local library, and then there's another library quite a bit further out that works with Break My Game and regularly hosts a monthly Break My Game session where they actually do active engagement with prototypes of board games.
That's awesome. Um, so yeah, we wanted to get together. This all kind of spawned because Jean was recently at one of our events. So every year in June, the American Library Association has their annual conference. And if you're not familiar, and you likely aren't, with the structure of the American Library Association, the American Library Association is a very big umbrella. So ALA is the overarching organization, and then within ALA, there are divisions and subdivisions and special interest groups and round tables. Round tables are more formalized interest groups. Like interest groups might be like 10 people who are talking about a thing, and they might have a forum. And once that grows, they can petition to officially become a round table of ALA. So the Games and Gaming Roundtable started as an interest group eons ago, and now we're one of the biggest, most self-sustaining roundtables within ALA. And we have a lot of overlap with the graphic novels and comics roundtable. Probably unsurprisingly, there's a lot of people who like both games and comics. And we had a lot of overlap with the young adult YALSA, which was the Young Adult Library Services Association. They are now going to be wrapped back into a separate division that focuses on K to 12 aged people, not just young adults, but a lot of overlap with them as well. So as a round table, we're one of the more active roundtables at the annual conference. The Graphic Novels Roundtable and the Games Roundtable both actually have a presence on the exhibit floor. So we run a gaming lounge on the exhibit floor, and within our gaming lounge, we have small press tables for indie publishers where they can come and you can directly sell games to people who are at the conference. It's also a good way to just get your games in front of librarians so they know that they exist, and you can run demos in our space. The graphic novels folks do things like hosting author talks in their table, and they'll have like comics and zines and things you can pick up. But I I think we're the only two round tables with actual space on the exhibit floor, while the others may run separate events. We're actually out there on the exhibit floor. So, for example, this year in the gaming lounge, we had Exalted Funeral, MythWorks, Hit Point Press, Ninth Level Games, Indie Press Revolution, Restoration Games, and someone who was running information about running like puzzle competitions. And then we also had Kobold Press there. They were not in the gaming lounge. They had like a full booth of their own just outside of the gaming lounge in the larger gaming and graphic novels pavilion, which is where all the comics and graphic novels people are kind of in the same area. Um, so that was what our exhibit floor presence looked like this year. And in addition to that, um, they we run a game night event on the Friday of the conference called ALA Play. And at ALA Play, this is the first year since COVID that we've had Unpub back at ALA Play. Previously, before COVID, they had Unpub every single year. But this is the fourth year we've been back, but the first year we've brought Unpub back. It happened to work out really well because we were in Philadelphia, which is where Heather O'Neill is headquartered. So she could really focus on building that back up this year. Um, so we do have an Unpub table where local designers can come in without having to pay to be there and demo their games. It's a chance for both designers to get their games in front of librarians so they can see what a prototype looks like, or it's a great way for librarians to see what a program like that might look like in their library, where they can invite games developers and publishers in to play test games with their communities. Um, and then all of the exhibitors who are in the gaming lounge on the exhibit floor also run demo tables at ALA Play. And then we have a bunch of open tables for open gaming. GameRT brings in a library of games that people can just pick up and play on any table that they'd like. We also had Cards Against Humanity at ALA Play this year because they are sponsoring both our grant program, where we give money to libraries for gaming collections and programs. They also sponsored the ALA Play event itself, so that we could have like swag and stuff for people who were showing up. So those are the big things that we do at annual specifically, but we're around all year doing all kinds of fun stuff. George had mentioned International Games Month earlier, so that's something that our committee kind of works on all year as far as recruiting designers and publishers to sponsor the event, and we do blog posts for our sponsors to get the word out. We also have some online events that we do. Two of them specifically. In March, we have our March MiniCon, which is a day of like micro presentations. We pick a theme, and then you don't have to be a librarian to present at this either. You can, we've had game designers present when we did our TTRPG one 2 years ago. But that's just a day full of like 15-minute presentations on topics relevant to libraries and community building around games. And then in October, we do what we call a roundtable spectacular, where we have a theme and we work with a bunch of different roundtables within ALA to connect on that theme and the intersections of our media. So the graphic novels folks are there, the film and media roundtable is there. Um, these are virtual. The March MiniCon and the Spectacular are virtual, and you don't have to be a librarian to attend. Anybody can pop in and participate in chat and watch what we're doing. The gaming roundtable typically will run a game connected to whatever the theme is. So there's just a lot of fun. It's a way for us to share fun media relevant to our roundtables with librarians, and they can experience stuff that they may not have interacted with otherwise. Um, and then aside from that, we're just constantly doing advocation for gaming in libraries. A lot of us have had to fight really hard to get some of our gaming collections and our programming in libraries. It is something you see more and more across the spectrum in special libraries, school libraries, public libraries, academic libraries, museums. You do see it more and more, but it can be a struggle sometimes, especially with budget cuts being the way that they are at the moment. Games can sometimes be the first thing to go, which is unfortunate. But we are here to kind of connect all sides of those worlds so that we can get games in libraries. So school libraries can also be ALA members. Yes, their librarians and the schools themselves are all welcome to be ALA members. And you don't have to be connected to a library to be an ALA member. If you're interested, you can be like a supporter member. And even as a supporter member, you could join the gaming roundtable and participate in like all of our initiatives. But that's not a requirement to work with us in general. Like we are happy to connect with publishers regardless of whether they're an ALA member. Um, an ALA membership can be expensive, so it's not something we require at all. Um, but I guess I'll address some of the first questions that I saw posted in Discord. Clayton was asking about a few things. So the first one about how libraries source RPG books. Um, One thing you will find with libraries is that none of them are exactly the same. Like every library does things a little bit differently. So at my library, we source RPG books literally from just wherever we can get them. Indie Press Revolution does have a library support program. They offer libraries a 25% discount on their purchase. They also have set us up so that we can do tax exempt purchasing, which is a requirement for a lot of libraries as nonprofit organizations. And they do free shipping on orders over $200. So that's a nice incentive for libraries to purchase directly from Indie Press because of the discount and the shipping. And it's weird, like not a lot of places that aren't big corporate entities have tax exempt purchasing set up. So if libraries can't do that, they're likely not going to purchase directly from you or the platform that you're selling on. But most of the games that I have in my library's collection, I did get from Indie Press. And then we also have library vendors like Baker and Taylor or Ingram, where we can purchase directly from. They don't have a ton of board games. Some of them do have like Dungeons and Dragons. You can get from any of them because they sell directly through Ingram, and it's mass market and easy to get a hold of. So that's where we would acquire things like that. But for indie stuff, it's typically either directly from the designer or the small publisher or going through distributors like Indie Press Revolution. And I can grab a link for Indie Press's library program. It's been super useful for the librarians that I know that have used it, and the 25% discount is really lovely for libraries as well. Um, and then the other question was the formal system or nonprofit partnership. So that again would be specifically for indie games would be Indie Press Revolution. We can buy through other distributors. It just kind of depends on what the librarian at that library is aware of, um, and whether or not they can get tax exempt purchasing. So Indie Press has been a great outlet for that. Um, I
Rebecca,
think
can I ask a really, really basic broad picture setting question?
definitely.
Can you speak to first like the raw numbers of how many libraries are in ALA in general, and then how many are in the gaming roundtable?
So for individual libraries, that is a difficult question to answer. The Games and Gaming Roundtable has 900 individual members, but that doesn't mean it's 900 libraries. Like that could be unemployed or retired librarians. It could be students. It could be 10 librarians who all work at the same library. So we have 900 members, but that doesn't mean 900 libraries. Same with ALA membership. I don't know if they've released their latest.
It's a little old, but
Yeah,
By ALA's best reckoning, there are about 125,000 libraries in the US,
but
counting,
they're not all ALA members.
counting across all types. But
Yeah.
just like our membership, their membership is sort of lumped into an individual number. Usually they're lucky if they have 50,000 members, and I think it's probably more down like in the 40s or maybe even lower right now because of the economy. Um, Obviously, there were signs of ALA financial strain this year at annual, so
I guess I was just curious about the order of magnitude of what we're
oh yeah,
talking about. So that's really helpful. Thank
yeah.
you.
So there's 125,000 systems. So if you counted big systems like Chicago that have multiple branches, that number would be even higher. Again, we like to say there are more libraries in the country than McDonald's, and it's by a large, large number. It's over that.
And that's any kind of library. So that's counting like your public libraries and all of their branches, school libraries, academic libraries. But yeah, we have more libraries than McDonald's, which is nice.
Law libraries.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all kinds of stuff that would never consider buying a game.
oh yeah.
Oh, a law game. Just kidding.
They might
We
buy,
have one
they might buy the First Mondays. Is that what it's called from Jason Matthews, the new Supreme Court game?
from Talia. Yeah. Yeah. If it ever gets its way off of the shipping
Well,
container.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I did bring a couple games as examples just to talk about the physicality of games and how they work in libraries. So I held up Chris's game earlier, uh, a Necromancer Heretic, which my library owns and we are going to put into circulation. But a lot of indie games are very like their their zine format does not love circulation. So I'm going to pass this off to my technical services person, and they're going to put a clear reinforcement cover on this so that it will live a little longer in circulation. But eventually, I'll probably have to replace this more frequently than I would like just a general book on our shelf, just because of the nature of how it is made. And it's not a deterrent for everybody. It will be a deterrent for some libraries who don't want to do the extra work of reinforcing games so that they're able to circulate. And not wanting to do the work isn't just about not literally not wanting to do it, but it's a lot of time and extra money investment to process games for circulation, especially indie games where we may have to do a lot of original cataloging. So to get these into our system and be discoverable by our users, all of the mark records that tell our catalog and our users literally everything about the game, we have to write original records for a lot of indie games because they're not in libraries yet. So that's just some additional work that a lot of libraries have to do.
I'm
Um,
sorry, can you explain what a mark record is?
a mark record is, let me grab one and I'll link it to you. It's a record that tells you everything about the thing that you're holding, what it looks like, who wrote it, the title, where it was published. It'll have all like the Library of Congress subject headings for that it falls under. It'll have a full description.
Author,
For board games, as an example, there will be an entry that lists every single thing that's in the box, like how many pieces of X are in a box. Mark record includes all of that. So it's all of the metadata, all the data about the physical object that you would need to identify it.
And do the like big trade publishers typically do that? Who is responsible for entering things into the mark database?
So when we purchase things, it can work a couple different ways. You can purchase books from a library distributor and they just come with the mark records and we have to do nothing at all. Um, there's also services like WorldCat that you can get mark records from. And some librarians also just copy mark records. You have to pay for mark records when you get them from other services. So a lot of librarians will also share MARC records, and you can copy records from librarians love to share. So we can copy MARC records from other library systems if they already have them.
So is there a way for us to give you a MARC record, or does this have to go through a third party? Like how would we bridge that gap for you?
You could provide MARC records on your product pages. If you do that, I would highly recommend hiring an actual cataloging librarian to do that because it's a lot. There's a lot of like nitpicky rules about creating MARC records and the formatting, and there's so many fields and knowing, when to add specific fields. But yes, the short answer to that is yes, you could provide MARC records on your product pages. I would just recommend hiring a cataloging librarian to
And that's a
create them.
physical thing? It's like printed in the book, or is do you
It's a digital file.
Okay, okay.
So let me pull up. Um, I can pull one up really quick. I was just talking about StewPot, so I will pull up that record in my library. And
So yeah, the advantage over a big publisher and or a standard book is that those are created by usually a library organization.
oops, that's the wrong link.
And they're
One
in
second.
they're in multiple of these national databases already. And so when an individual library gets it, it either comes, as Rebecca said, from the third party group who does it for them, or it's just in OCLC's database or one of the other major ones. And then a library could just copy it in to their catalog and then everything appears. And the big
So
problem with games is that very few libraries have done these before.
yeah, they don't
These records
exist.
just don't exist.
So the first thing that I put in there is just the library record for StewPot, if you were looking at it in our digital catalog. The second link, which you can find by scrolling to the bottom of that record in the first link, will bring you to this second link, and that is the MARC record. So that's all of the metadata about this game that feeds into our system. So they're like text files, they're machine readable, um, and it's just a bunch of fields with various bits of data. But this kind of text file is what you would provide if you wanted to have MARC records available with your games. Um, so that was kind of one example of a zine, the physicality of a zine format thing. We also have games like Dwelling that have inserts that go in the game and you need them to play. So we don't want to just circulate the book with these tucked in because they're going to fall out. And rubber bands, damage materials, they're not a super great solution. So what my library does, our tech person got these boxes and they're a great size for indie games and everything fits in there. We also use this for games. I'm going to make kits like for games that use playing cards as oracles or generators. I'm going to make kits like this where it has the game, but also a deck of cards or a coin or whatever is required to play that game will be in the kit so that it's playable kind of out of the box. Not all libraries will do this. Some of them will take the inserts out and the players will just have to print them from home or however else the game provides that. Um, but we prefer the kit idea so that it's more accessible. Um, but we're also going to run into like if those two pieces potentially go missing, I'm going to have to replace those. So some libraries will like pre-scan, or if the game has files available for those items, we'll save them so that we don't lose access to them, so that we can print them if necessary. And then We do currently, as I said, we have Stew Pot in our collection. This isn't our collection copy. This is my copy, so there's no markings on it. But Stew Pot comes with a lot of optional goodies, which I have at home, but we don't have here at the library because that would require a kit and they're not necessarily required, so we haven't made a kit for this one yet. But now that we know what boxes we're using, I might go get the cards and things that you can use for this um, to put those together. So kitting games is something that we do a lot. I have also created these player kits for TTRPGs where it's a kit that houses 5 player kits inside. And so there's just dice in here, but I've just ordered little mini dry erase markers and like the plastic, like blank plastic standees so they can write their name, their character name, or if they want to draw, they can draw it if they're using maps. Each of these will have a coin in them and coins, markers. Yeah. So those will all be in these kind of like generic player kits that will work across a variety of games. Um, I'm also toying with the idea of putting a single deck of card inside one of these, just so there's a deck of cards with the kit in case they need it for the game. I don't think 5 decks of cards is necessary when you're checking out a whole kit like this, but I may add a single deck of cards to those kits. So that's kind of how we make them more playable outside of the box. And not everybody has dice at home. Like when we're thinking about our students here on campus, they may go buy dice after they've played a game, but they may not start out with dice. So we want to make sure that they have access to actually play a game they're checking out without having to go get all of those peripheral items.
Can I ask then if it makes sense? What I'm hearing is, especially with these games where you kind of are creating these kits, does it make sense for you to be able to buy it as a kit to begin with, or do libraries like to kit things themselves because they have different form factors for the shelves or whatever storage solution?
I think that depends on a variety of things. It it would probably be more expensive to buy kitted games from the publishers versus us being able to like bulk order these boxes, and we are obviously going to then spend time on making the kits, but supply wise, it's cheaper for us to buy these in bulk. Um, and like you said, like this box may not be a solution for every library. They may not have the kinds of shelves that this is going to fit on, but it works for us. So I've seen some libraries use like magazine file things to put games, collections of games in, where they'll have the game and whatever else is needed like directly in that file, the magazine file holder, because those also stand up nicely on shelves. And if they don't have the space or they don't like using these, it's just another option. Um, so I do think, at least for most libraries that I've worked in, us doing the kitting has been cheaper and more customizable, but I don't think it would be a bad option for some kits to exist. Um, it, it would just kind of be a publisher preference, I guess, and like how cost effective it would be for y'all to do that for just a portion of your games if you're not doing it for all of them.
Can I ask um, how you're envisioning helping patrons discover these kits when, if I mean they're all uniform plastic boxes stacked on a shelf, that don't necessarily nobody's going to search in the card catalog to find them. Are you going to do a newsletter? Are you going to show them on on a display, or what are you thinking?
So the way that we have our games organized, all of the tabletop role-playing games are in their own section. So these are going to be on the shelf right next to all of the other tabletop role-playing games. So for someone who's coming into our library knowing they want to look at tabletop games, they'll see these on the shelf right next to all of the other gaming books that are there. And we will have signage on the shelves too, like saying what is on the shelf. We also support our collection with events. So we are starting, we're calling it a supportive gaming community, but it's basically a gaming club that students, faculty, and staff can join. And we're going to use the games in our collection to run games for that program. So they'll get to play these at the club and experience them that way as well. Um, Also, if they're in our catalog and they're looking for tabletop games, if they just do a general search for tabletop games, these titles will show up and they won't know that it's in a kit like this until they get to the shelf. So it will be discoverable in the catalog the same way any other tabletop game would be discovered. Um, and we're also planning on doing, we have, at my library, we have 4 shelves where we do monthly rotating displays on a variety of themes and topics, and games are definitely included in that. So in October, when we do a spooky theme, Dwelling will be on that display.
Building on Paul's question, I know like the scholastics of the world will have like posters and stands and all that kind of stuff. Is that something you see as useful and helpful if one could
I,
afford providing it, just out of curiosity?
yeah, I have never used publisher provided posters in my libraries. Like we don't have the space often to put them up. They're great at like conventions and things for publishers to get library attention, but we don't really put posters like that up in our library space. Um, yeah, Molly is a public librarian in chat. She says she doesn't use them. I didn't use them at at either of the public libraries I was at. So it's just kind of a space issue, and depending on the size of the poster, like having something to physically put it in or on, there's just not a lot of space. At my library, I do have a giant TV monitor in our library where we cycle like ads basically for our events and things. So when we are running our gaming programs, I'll put game covers up there to kind of illustrate things that will be available. So they'll be showcased that way as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if you used like digital kits for either social or exactly what you just described.
We don't circulate digital games are a very
No, I'm
tricky
sorry. I
part.
mean digital assets. Like if you had like the picture or short video of the game in play, like
Oh, yes,
yeah.
1,000%. So I'm going to be working on making, we call them libguides. They're basically like a website with a bunch of resources on a specific topic. I'm going to make a resource guide for our tabletop role-playing game collection. And on that page, I can link out to how to plays, or if designers have like cool art you can use for a desktop or in your game or whatever, I can link out to those things from my resource page. Because our goal is for our campus community to like get immersed in these games. So we want them to experience the games at the gaming events that we're going to have, but mostly we want for them to come to our event, play a game, love playing, check stuff out from our collection, and run them on their own outside of our events, and then keep coming to our events and keep checking things out from the collection. So anything that we can do to make that easier for them, I'm gonna work on doing that. So building resources like that. I feel like you tend to see that at least living digitally on a website more at academic libraries than public libraries, linking out to other like how to plays. But one thing I have seen at a couple different public libraries is on the game, like if this were a board game or even this game, on the box itself, they'll put QR codes that will directly link to a how to play or the publisher website so that players can take that home, look at the box, see that there's a QR code for how to play, and just play it there at home and have access to that.
So one thing that indie designers share recommendations with each other all the time, things to do. And one thing that sort of gets circulated every now and then is how to do a press kit for your game. And, the recommendation is usually have a Google Drive folder and have the following things in that folder. It's a photo at a horizontal aspect ratio and one at a vertical aspect ratio, and some testimonial quotes, and things that people who use press releases will want to have. And if we circulated some recommendations like that for library resources, what would a librarian want to have? I think a lot of people would create that kind of thing. If we could get out of your knowledge, what something like that should look like.
Yeah, I think the most useful things, because if you consider just a librarian adding games to their collection, they may be familiar with them, but they have not played all, like I haven't played all of the games that I'm adding to my collection, but I have the skills to teach games. So anything that's going to help me teach a game quicker. So like guides that teach people how to teach your game are helpful to librarians. Succinct and easy to read player aids are helpful to librarians. I feel like a lot of I feel like fewer games are coming with separate player aids today. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like even just a list of, yeah, and helpful to players too, for sure. Um, but like if players can take, X number of actions on their turn, getting that out of the book and onto a player aid is useful for everybody, and allowing us to print multiple copies of it so every player has one, not just one person, is really useful. Um, any like Molly was saying, promotional graphics are easier for us to use than posters because we can take your logo or a cute character from your game and put it into our digital assets or make like an 8x11 with a bunch of different games that we're going to showcase and use graphics that way. We need the graphics and we need permission to use them. Um, but I think it's mostly, especially for people who aren't familiar with games, are any tools that make it easy for us to teach your game to other people, um, and make it quick to pick up, whether that's a sheet that we read, or if you do a video, I would recommend shorter videos. Like a 30-minute video is long, um, for someone who is not familiar with games to sit down and watch to learn. Like if it's going to take them 30 minutes to learn to watch a video to learn how to play a game, when you consider the programs that we run, we have maybe an hour, if we're lucky, if we're super lucky, an hour and a half to teach, play, and debrief with players. And sometimes it's not even an hour long. So, um, for role-playing games like adventures that are playable in 30 minutes, pre-written adventures that are playable in 30 minutes, librarians would love that.
Well, actually,
And
go ahead.
I would just say, as a designer who wants to see their product loved, I can see the scariness of a board game. But as designers, remember that librarian, even if a few pieces are missing, many librarians will then take that and have game design workshops and use the parts that we can't use from your game because it no longer plays, help kids learn how to design their own games. So
Yeah, there's someone in this chat who actually has a book about how to go and make your own games. So, but
Yes, and
the
has
yeah,
collaborated with libraries.
yeah, exactly. Now that you've opened the question, the kind of point of like what kinds of games you kind of look for, and one of the hypothesis I was playing out at ALA at Play was to thinking about journaling games as a good fit for libraries for a couple of reasons. One is just even the interest in literacy and writing, for example. Not that you have to write to do a journaling game. That was kind of a very surface level thing, but then in the conversations I ended up having with folks, one thing that popped quite a bit was oh my gosh, I don't need a GM for this. And apparently the GM shortage or DM shortage, depending on game that libraries experience, in many cases. I'm curious if you can speak to those other elements of what makes a game attractive and usable.
Yes, having people to run the game is it's always harder to find GMs than it is to find players, whether you're running a program or trying to set up a game night, like a personal game night with your friends. Um, in the public library that I worked at, I ran a TTRPG club for third to sixth graders, and we started it with two staff members running games, myself and someone else. But we had more kids than we could seat at tables. We didn't want our player count to get more than six because third to sixth graders, and having to teach, play, and debrief in an hour and a half. So we ended up recruiting some teen volunteers. I just saw them playing D&D in the library one day, and I was like, they're here every week. They're probably going to want to, like, I see them both running games. Um, my kids' club did not play D&D at all. We played everything but D&D. So I had to talk to them about running other things. But I was able to recruit two teen volunteers and they co-DM'd together. So we were able to open up another table. Um, and a lot of libraries do use volunteer GMs because they may not have the budget to pay for a GM. Um, but a lot of those programs, if you're trying to run multiple tables, you're going to be relying on volunteers. One constant struggle that I'm sure George and Molly have heard the same thing from libraries is that the time it takes to plan for a game, a lot of a lot of library leadership doesn't always see that as time well spent. So that's why they try to push the GM part of it onto people that they can recruit as volunteers because they don't want to see all of that staff time put into preparing games, which is another reason why something that is quick to learn, quick to teach, pre-made adventures that run in a short amount of time. Um, are going to be key for a lot of librarians who are running stuff, unless they have, an active volunteer community who is willing to do that voluntarily.
Yeah, I mean our local library does, but I just wanted this just to go to promotion mode for a second. This was exactly what I was trying to tell people is these are two games I've run. Look at there, the blur's not working again. Okay. Anamnesis and Necromancer Heretic are games we've actually run in our local bookstore. Same like close enough in terms of form factor to a library.
Yeah.
Where we had groups of people like mechanically they would just draw the same card or roll or draw the same card. No, actually both of them are card driven, so draw the same cards, but then journal separately and then kind of
Yeah.
share if they wanted to. That was with adults. But that actually proved really successful in terms of creating social bonds amongst the group. These people who didn't know each other before, but it also did not require the store or anybody else to supply a GM who had to spend hours prepping. It was just open the book and start. And I think that's the way most of our journaling games are designed. Open the book and
Yeah.
start. And so I'm
Mm.
curious that ended up being an interesting hypothesis to test out.
Yeah. I love solo TTRPGs. I love journaling games. I'm adding them to my collection. I have several in our collection here. And when we start our events for our tabletop community, we have three departments across campus that are running this community. So it's me at the library. We have one of the counselors from our wellness center, and then we have somebody from our Center for Social Impact. So the three of us are working together to organize and facilitate this community. One of them will be running D&D stuff. One of them will be running more indie stuff. And I'm going to run indie stuff and facilitate like a solo room where I can just show people solo games. I think for people who have never played a tabletop role-playing game, playing saying, hey, there's this solo game. You can play it by yourself. It's either going to be really enticing or really scary because they've never played a tabletop game before. And now you're suggesting that they just play a game by themselves. So facilitating that in a group setting is really welcoming, easier to get into. And even though you're journaling your own game, it's still a group experience. And having that time to debrief after where you can share, like, oh, when we drew this card, I did that, but you did this. It's really fun to have that conversation afterwards. And it's one of my favorite parts of these events is having that debrief time after any game that we're playing. Um, but yeah, I think solo and journaling work well for that. It's just one of the decisions that libraries will have to make is for journaling games, you have to either provide the thing that the person is documenting it in, or they have to have it themselves. Um, and for journaling games, like we're just going with they have to have it themselves, unless they literally just want like a piece of paper to write on. We're probably going to get some journal that we do as swags, like stuff for our club, but they're not going to circulate in our kits. Um, but running events for it is super easy, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
Um,
we'd been thinking about whether it would be helpful to like write up a guide to how to run one of these. I think Paul, you thought about that, and I thought about it as well as like just a way to ease the introduction of that practice.
yeah, facilitator guides are always going to be helpful when it comes to running something in a library. I ran the sticker game for a group of adults, and that one come like it's a solo game, but they have instructions or suggestions on what you can do for like group play. And they have suggestions for group play, like literally group play, where you're all working in the same journal, or together alone, where you're playing in the same room, but in your own journals, but listening to the prompt at the same time. So guides that help with that kind of facilitation will definitely be useful for running a program.
It was really interesting to me that Gene had such success running journaling games at the game store, but then at ALA, when he did the table, he had it all set up for people to sit down and, give it a try. And yet people had different expectations of what they were doing at ALA than sitting down and playing a journaling game, more interactive, expectations. And I think um, that's been on my mind a lot since he talked about it. The idea that how do you create the expectations that are going to get people to have the experience they did at the game store or that you've had when you facilitated them at the library, um, as opposed to like what happened at ALA.
Yeah, when I ran them, everybody who showed up knew that that's what we were going to be doing. Like they were expecting to be playing something solo but together. Um, so I think next year for ALA, if we have someone, I'm the conference chair next year for ALA, so the organization of that space, I'll be able to facilitate. But if we have someone we know, okay, so and so wants to run demo journaling or solo games, we can put that info in the event description, like make it more explicit what's going to be available. I think this year was a little difficult because we did not get a list of designers for Unpub. Like we didn't know from Unpub who was going to be there until y'all showed up. So we couldn't, there was no opportunity for us to kind of capitalize on advertising that kind of experience. But going forward, we can adjust for that.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think the vibe in the room was a little bit set by Cards Against Humanity and this idea of like very active, vibrant energy. And also, I was there just as much to talk to people as to play. So I ended up with one person play testing a game, but I was also just very curious just to talk to people and hear about their experience in libraries, and that's what people are
Yeah,
comfortable doing.
And some people do show up, like librarians will show up to play just to tabletop, just to table hop because they want to see the different kinds of games that are available, or they may just want to observe people playing, to see like how a game is run or how they might be able to facilitate something similar in their library. Like some people are just there to take notes so that they can replicate the thing, which is a little harder sometimes to do if you're in the thing instead of observing. Um, so I think setting up the expectation ahead of time uh, for people. We can also, if there's like known things that exhibitors want to do, we can schedule specific demos in our lounge. Um, but for stuff like that in the lounge, it would just be limited to publishers who are actually exhibiting.
Yeah, it looks like you're back in Chicago next year.
We are in Chicago next year, yeah.
Because it would be neat to have like a dedicated session and in the program to be like, hey, this is a technique for something that you can try out in your library, and then that way people come with that expectation.
Yeah, we could
And
like a a presentation with an active learning component where we talk about how to run the program, but then we actually run the program for the people who are there and they can actually play would be a great way to do that.
oh gosh, I just realized we blew right past 5 o'clock. I
We
don't know if
did.
people are on a tight time frame, or 4 o'clock in your case. 3 in Paul's. I don't know if people are on tight time frames. I want to respect people's time if they are.
I can hang out until 4:30 my time, 5. So for the next 24 minutes. But if you have questions that I have not addressed and you would like me to, put them in the Discord thread and
Jason has a question in the chat. In
building
late.
out learning objectives as a marketing piece. Yes, and that is something that GameRT works on. We have a couple resources on our website um, that connect game mechanics and skills directly to like 21st century classroom skills or classroom learning objectives. So that's another thing that I think has is a little harder for an individual designer to do because there's so many standards for learning. Like they vary from state to state. Each state can have their own set of objectives and standards. So even just having a grid of like how basic skills translate generally to like soft core skills um,
Yeah, I was going to say,
could be a marketing piece.
helping in your sales pitch. I used to work in academic libraries, and most of them I've worked in have been to support business programs and students finding jobs. And so I've worked a lot with the offices on campus that help bring companies in, do the job fairs, etc. And both anecdotally from those experiences and from research that the Society for Human Resource Managers does every year, when they interview HR execs after a crop of graduates and they say, how do they do? HR execs almost always point to a lack or a deficiency in soft skills. So your communications, your critical thinking, your teamwork, et cetera, et cetera. So I have always preached that games help strengthen those, even if that's not the intent of you as a designer. So if you ever need a sales pitch, you can always add in there that, well, HR execs always say that new hires lack these skills and my game does a great job at, and then whichever skill you think your game does the best at.
Yeah, it's also when I was at the public library, it was helpful with parents who were just like, oh, it's just games, it's just like leisure recreation. Like you don't need to waste your time playing video games or board games or literally any kind of game. But being able to talk to a parent and say, no, this game actually will build your child's math and reading skills. They're going to use critical thinking. Um, they're going to work on like pattern recognition and spatial reasoning. Parents love that. And it's a lot easier to see a kid walk home having checked out a game if we can illustrate some of those things to parents. Yes, parents would love to see their kids writing in a journal, no doubt.
And I imagine parents like librarians, if there's a situation where the kid can play the game by themselves and not have to pull their parent in to say like this game is only playable if I get you and and the other parent to play with me.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Um, any other questions we can answer while we're still here? Obviously, the on Discord, you can ask questions literally anytime, but
Can it be super? Oh, go ahead, because I've asked a lot of questions.
I was just going to say, hopping real quickly back to the Mark Records piece. If we were interested in finding a cataloging librarian to help us out, is there a list somewhere of people who would do that, or what would we do?
I can post a link. I think I may have already, but I'll post a link to GameRT's Discord server. You don't have to be a librarian to join our server, and you can interact with librarians who are there who are definitely already interested in gaming. We also the Gaming Roundtable has a metadata committee who are working on creating guides for how to catalog games. So potentially some of them, but there's several librarians just even that were like past board members or things who I know do cataloging or would be better people to recommend a cataloger to you than
Okay.
I am. So let me grab that link. There are also, when you join the server, there's some like auto roles you can assign yourself, and one of them is a games publisher or designer so that people like you can identify yourself that way if you choose.
And I am actually on that server, so
Okay, awesome.
since just recently. um, but okay, great. And
If
then Mhm.
if librarians are buying games from IPR, we might
Mhm.
consider asking IPR if they could have something on a product page, click to download a Mark record, and then if the publisher provided it, it would be there for them. IPR is pretty responsive to that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely connect with Nick on and see what kind of interest there might be there. Because I agree, I think it would be really helpful. And if they exist, like having them wherever your games are being sold, as something that can just be downloaded would be good.
And just to be clear, Mark is completely like internal to the American library system, and it's not shared with any other systems.
Um, it's not exclusive to libraries in the US, though formatting standards may vary. And the American Library Association, to be clear, is not just the United States of America. It also includes Canada and Mexico. So it's I say international, a continental organization. Um, but yeah, it's an international standard.
And Molly's got that. Yeah. So yeah.
Can I ask then a really crass question, which is, what's the best way to market to librarians who are thinking about having games or have games in their programming? How do you find this goes back to discoverability, but how do you find out about games? What's the way that learn about them?
Um, So publishers are welcome to post on the GameRT server. You're interacting with librarians who you know are interested in games already. But a lot of us find out about games the same way other gamers find out about games, going to cons, reading magazines or, gaming news sites, interacting on Discord communities. So it's kind of the same as selling to other gamers, I guess. It's just the approach is a little different because you want to make sure that it's kind of like uh pitching a game to a publisher. Like you want to make sure that your game is actually something that can circulate in a library. So highlighting the features of your game that make it something that a library can circulate easily, and something that's going to appeal to that library's community. So if it's an academic library, something that college kids are going to want to play and check out. Um, Same with like a school library or any other specific library. Um, but if you're able to come to ALA Annual, that is, a great place to interact with librarians and get your stuff out. But also just partnering with GameRT. Uh, the International Games Month is a really, really, really good way to get your games in front of libraries. Even if a library doesn't get your game as part of the like raffle system, we do promotional blog posts for libraries that participate in that, and it goes out on all of our social media. Um, we also like the more librarians you talk to who are interested in playing your games. The other thing that we do is we have our Platinum Play Awards, and so librarians have to nominate. Like you can't self-nominate your game, but if you talk to librarians about your game and your librarian loves your game and thinks it's great for a library program or collection, they could potentially nominate your game for a Platinum Play Award, which would, you'd be on our award list as a game that works well in libraries.
I have to jump, but thank you very much. This has been really, really useful.
Awesome. I'm glad. And we'll continue the conversation on Discord too. So,
Yeah, unless there's any other questions, I mean, I think this has been extraordinarily helpful and very, very insightful. So thank you so
that's
much.
good.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that what we learn here we can figure out better ways to make it easier for you all to be using our games in your environment, and whatever we can do maybe collectively to kind of level up to get there.
For sure. Yeah. It's like libraries are definitely kind of a weird space to get into when you're not going through like the big channels. But I think librarians in general are fans of indie projects. It's just, making sure that it's things we can like if we have to do the kits that we have the money and the time to do it, and um, the awareness is the biggest thing. So talk to librarians, go to your library, ask if you can help run a game night at your library, whether it's running your games or other games. Just, yeah.
And like I said, Dan has sponsored IGM for the past 2 years now, and John, I think this year is the first year he's sponsoring. So as they go through the process, ask them how it went, and you know, we'll be happy
And
to answer your questions. But obviously, you can ask questions of each other. Probably,
yeah, and if you haven't read John, he did a write-up on the 4 week or the 4 session course that he did with his public library, where I I love it. It's one of my favorite library stories with games because he taught people over 4 sessions how to design a one-page tabletop role-playing game. And then some of them ended up tabling at an event, like selling their games just from that experience, which is so fantastic to me.
and I don't have it nailed down yet, but we're working on getting the webinar version of that, hopefully in November for IGM.
Yeah.
So then there'll be a recording of it forever, and all of the designers can see how he.
Yeah, that really pays it for. We've actually emulated that at a local game store using his materials. It's one of those things that is really great to replicate.
Yeah. Very cool story.
Well, thank you again, and I'm hopeful and excited about, working more together. So it'll be
Yeah,
great.
definitely. And I will get the recording of this and post a link so people who missed it can see it. So
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people interested in that. So thank you.
awesome. Well, thanks, y'all.
Have a
This
great
was fun.
afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.